Oh no, it's recording.
Imagine going up to a bank and be like, "Excuse me, I want to apply for like a personal loan. Can you tell me why you're applying for this personal loan?" Well, it's a long story. Do you want to sit down? Oh, okay. It's for a marathon. Ah,
Going to Chicago.
approved.
No, I got to New York.
Oh, no, okay.
You're like, I'll go to New York. I need this ticket.
Damn. The economy is rough these days.
You get the one guy at the bank that also runs marathons.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, my guy. Risk, high risk. Chance of success, pretty slim.
Oh, man. Yep. I can see that happening, actually. Yeah. Oh, man.
That was actually you, wasn't it?
Not yet.
One day.
Not yet. Anyways, yeah. So we're back.
We are back.
We're back.
Number 4.
Number 4. Whoa.
Yeah. We decided to go back to the park. Different park. We're just parking up shop.
Yes. That's a good one.
Podcast in the park with Patrick and Julian. Julian and Patrick in the park. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about like year in review of maybe like a bit of like our own life, but like how do you reflect on a year? And because it's the first one we've ever done, like how does this year compare to like previous years?
Yeah.
What is it that makes it a good year? Do you even know how you define that? For you, what do you think makes a good year versus a bad year? And have you experienced both? Or has it always just been growth?
Trying to think of what a bad year looks like. And I guess a bad year. Maybe tragedy. That'd be a reasonably bad year. And I think so far I've been quite lucky in that there hasn't really been like catastrophic tragedy, like personally or professionally just yet. So I haven't really had what I would say a bad year. But maybe a not great year would be one where like maybe one that kind of looks flat, like flatline, in that I was just kind of like continuing the motions rather than like having an upward trajectory, whatever upward looks like on that particular circumstance. For me, this year has been it's just kept going up, and
Cool.
we're coming up to the end of December and the end of 2024, but it's still upwards and really steep. So I think this year has been like one of the best, if not the best year of my life so far.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so it's been
Shit.
good. Yeah.
We'll come back to best year of your life. I'm curious, like, you said a bad year would be like a year of tragedy or like a year of like flatlining. I think in the past I might have said that like a bad year is like a year that has something quite bad or tragic in it, but I also don't think that necessarily defines a bad year. But I would agree that a flatline year is probably not an impactful year, or at least a year when you're not at least forcing yourself to create opportunities and to move forwards. Is probably the best way. So coming back to reflecting that, what made this like best year ever is cliche is that of like
Maybe every New Year is my best year. I mean, maybe that's not a bad way to think about it, right? Like, are you living a life where every New Year is the best year of your life? That'd be a good goal.
I think it's a good goal.
Yeah.
But like,
so.
what like, is there something in particular that you're like, these were the 2, 3, 10 aspects of your life that made it a good year?
Yeah.
Or is it just vibes? You're like, I'm just vibing. This is a good year every year.
Yeah, you can
good
just
year.
feel it. What do you mean? What do you feel? I don't know. You just it just feels that way. The one framework that I've always relied on for a long time now, when I think about like these like broad questions, it's called pies. Do you want to have a guess at what pies might mean?
Hopefully it's not the decimal place number.
This is like you're throwing a dart at like a big board.
Yeah.
So, like, do you know? Have you heard about it before? Like,
I haven't heard of it. Maybe it's
Okay.
like the 7 different aspects of your life in a pie chart.
Kind of,
Okay.
yes. So it's like physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually.
Yeah.
So when I think about like, okay, if I start with P and review my whole year right now, P is like, oh, marathon running this year, you know? And that was like a specific block of time where physically I was like, the consistency in training, the race at the end, the whole like physical pursuit that involves. I think this year I've physically become the strongest possible version of myself so far.
Yeah.
Strongest in the sense of like being fit, I guess is a better
Yeah.
word for it. Yeah.
You feel fitter this year than what you did when you were cycling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, yeah. And actually running has kind of overwhelmed more of my life than what running was, which is kind of interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And cycling or running was?
Running.
Okay.
Yeah.
Running's
Today.
become more overwhelming than what cycling was.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Damn.
That's a cool thing to think about. What do you feel like has been the connection for you for running?
So I've got a funny story. Maybe it's not so funny. Maybe it's funny to me. Anyways, so I went to a running club a few weeks ago, and I bumped into a friend who I hadn't seen in like a few weeks.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I saw you on Strava. Like, what are you training for?" I'm like, "Life." I didn't really think on the spot to like give that answer, but like now that I think of it, that's like really the appropriate answer. That
was the unconscious answer.
Yeah, that's actually what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like I'm not training for a race. Like I don't necessarily have something to aim for in like January or February. Like I'm just kind of, there will be a race.
Yeah.
No matter how scared I might be right now of a potential next race, because at the end of this year's race, I was like, oh, maybe I might just give up the full distance marathon running. Maybe that's enough. But yeah, so I'm not there yet. But, there will be a race coming up next, whatever that is. But yeah, training for life.
Cool. Yeah, I think coming back to like the different tangents of, like you said, it's a pie and that's how you like assess your year.
Yeah.
I think like my reflection of this year feels like it's been a massive year, like done a lot. It didn't start off great, but it feels like it's turned massively. Whereas I think like last year was like probably the start of the upward trajectory, but like 2 years ago felt like a very bad waste of a year almost, of not really achieving too much, not really making progress in any one particular area.
Right.
But like as a whole, I feel like this year has felt more valuable in the sense of, I think my metric, as much as like pies are good, like an apple pie goes down well. Can't define my year by an apple pie, but goes down well. I think it's like, does the year feel like it's taken longer? Is probably the main metric for this year. Because it's like this consistent thing that as you get older, time moves quickly, and I was feeling that for a few years now.
Right.
Whereas this feels like, it's not really like, holy shit, we're in December. I'm like, holy fuck, we're in December. Of like, this is still the same year. Of like, how I started is like not close to how I finished.
Right.
Which is, wild to think about. So much full that like I forget other important things in the year. Like I was like, done all these runs, I've done like the stand-up, I've done all these things. And I just even remember, I was like, I had my 30th birthday this year. Fuck.
Oh, yeah.
I missed doing that. And that was a big milestone. And so it's like,
Wow.
that as a general, it's definitely more of a vibe than an actual metric. But that
I think that's a great vibe.
Yeah. That was kind of like my summary of like what made it a good year, without going like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate your physicality? On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you relate your relationships? On a scale of 1 to 10, how connected are you to a spiritual world?
So like, so that I'm hearing that correctly, like a year might have 365 days on a calendar year, but in reality, it feels a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
and
like-
that makes a great year.
Yeah. It's like when you take time, it's like you sit down for 5 minutes.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if you've like, you get the sensation when you like scroll through reels, you're like, what? My alarm's gone off in 5 minutes? It's like, holy shit, like where did the time go? And you're doing something pointless, but it's like, sucks up all your attention.
Yep.
And you look after 5 minutes and you're like, that was a waste of 5 minutes. Not even a good meme. And then it gets to a point where it's like, if you are watching a video or you're waiting for your Uber delivery eats or like something, 5 minutes feels longer. Like the time's ticking, it's moving. Whereas like it's sit still, do nothing for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It takes an eternity, like an absolute eternity. And so I feel like this year feels closer to doing nothing, the sensation of doing nothing, and that feels like it's really drawn out.
Yeah.
As opposed to being like, flick through the day, flick through the day, flick through the day, sleep, eat, work, sleep, eat, work, and it's going, holy shit, I did so much stuff, and the stuff I did, I was really present for.
Right. Wow. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Huh. So, if a year, here's the question that just came up, which was, if you had a boring year, does the feeling stay the same of like things taking longer, things feeling longer than what it actually is?
I don't know if it'll be a
weird
boring year.
Yeah.
If a boring year will take longer or feel longer, based on that perspective.
Yeah.
My guess is that the boredom would like drive into, I'm probably not going to experiment and like spend a whole year and be like, I'm just going to sit in front of this wall, watch the paint dry for a whole year. But
it is an interesting shade of white.
yeah, I feel like it would take longer. It would. Then I think it's probably more in like the first two examples of like, are you reeling through the year or TikToking your way through the year or YouTube Shorts through your year and just like doing the work thing? Yeah. Like you see the thing, but then you forget it in like 5 seconds and you're not super present to knowing that this is a big part of your year as you're doing it.
Right.
Whereas this year it's been like so many runs, like continuous amounts of runs, like the 100K, the marathon, all the trails, like trying to do stand-up, meeting new people, the 100 runs, the starting this podcast now, going to Vietnam, 30th birthday, starting a new job.
That was this year?
Yeah,
Damn.
I know.
What the heck?
It's like that question of like, that was this year?
That was this year, yeah.
Like, you know it's a long year when you ask the question,
yeah.
that was this year.
Yeah. Damn. Yep.
Did you have any of those moments this year?
I definitely feel I have a strong sense of that feeling at work, very specifically. And so far in this particular company I'm working with, like every year it just feels like 5 years. Both in terms of like the professional progression side of things, like am I learning new skills, and also the feeling that I get when I do the work itself.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like when you're in that zone where things are just working, it's like there's like the physics phenomenon of like time dilation, of how depending on your reference point, your experience of time is different, even though objectively we're all experiencing the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyways, within this particular company, it's as if like time is dilating and like the 1 year feels like 5 years.
I feel like that's a technical terminology of what we're trying to say.
yeah. Lame. How do you explain that better?
No, but I think like that's it. It's like your referential index of it, of like that same 5 minutes could be done by 3 different people, and like your perception of time.
Yeah.
I think it's even like this pain study of like watching like a Veritasium video of like when you put your hands in cold water, if you slowly make it warmer just a little bit, it feels less painful, so it feels like it takes longer or isn't as susceptible, even though if you put your hand into it at the start, without it, it'd still be freaking cold.
Huh.
But that slight reduction in pain makes it feel better. Yeah. And so it's like this sensation of, I think our memories are triggered by big emotional impacts and then how we finish it. I think was the general gist of the study.
I'm mulling over like one word you mentioned earlier, which was presence. Like, and I wonder, do we always have to experience new things for us to be really present in our lives? Like, does every new year have to involve new things for us to like have that experience of like time feeling like it's long?
What do you think?
I hope not, because it's kind of like chasing that feeling when you buy a new car, right?
Yeah.
It's like new will only be temporary.
Yeah.
And it's short-lived and it's not really sustainable. So I wonder, if we're setting about like towards the goal of like living a good life.
Yeah.
Then I don't think it needs to always be new.
I don't think it needs to be new.
Yeah.
I think presence isn't about having something new. Like presence connects to like meditation. Like I think of like Buddhists or the monks, basically. Like they're quite present in theory. And then when I was in Vietnam, I saw some guy lying on his back, like scrolling through TikTok. So I'm not sure how present the monk
like
was.
A monk?
Yeah, monk. I was like,
Monks on TikTok.
yeah,
Nice. Real
And-
present.
yeah. And so
Real
it's like
connected with the reals.
he's connected to the social network.
Oh.
He's just sending out good vibes. And so the idea of like just being present is like this, of like, can you be present to this conversation, to this moment? And so this isn't a new conversation. Well, this isn't a great example because it is a new conversation, but like if you were to just do the same amount of runs every single year, can you still be present in the runs?
Yeah.
It's like, as opposed to, work's probably a better example for me, is it's like sometimes you've got times when you're so present to what you're doing that the time of the day goes quick. But then sometimes like a day sort of drags on because you're not quite doing as much and you don't have as much stuff to do. And so it drags out. And so to be present is just to be in that moment. It doesn't have to be new, it doesn't have to be crazy, it doesn't have to be different.
Yeah.
However, like the newness stimulates the sense of variety.
It's almost like, like depending on what frame you look at it from, it's almost like in those like years where things feel long, it's almost like in the moment it's actually very short, but when we think back, it seems very long. Whereas on the opposite end, it's kind of like in the moment when you're doing something dull, repetitive, blah blah blah, in the moment it feels very long, but in hindsight it seems very short, which
So,
is
like an example, like doing the marathon, felt like a long day.
Oh yeah.
And then you look back at it now, how long of a memory, like can you like picture yourself doing the whole thing?
Not really. I have glimpses of PTSD, yes.
Just as the perfect PTSD marathon runner should. Just glimpses, just the essential points.
Why am I doing this?
But like you've only got the memory of like, there's probably a really hard point that you remember.
Yeah.
In the race, you're like, this is the part that I was really screwed. And you sort of remember fighting through that, and then you remember how you finished. And like, there's like parts in there that you kind of remember, I remember going through it, but like, I could almost not see that. It doesn't bring up memory because it doesn't have an emotional pull at that point in time. It's just a kilometre. Whereas like, how can you stay really present through the whole thing? And like, you're probably not even going to remember the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like your memory of that is purely going to be just a memory. Like it's not even going to be the accurate representation of what happened. Like I like to think my memory's pretty good, but like it always messes with you.
Yep. Yeah. In the moment, does the marathon feel long or short? Very long.
It feels incredibly long.
Yo.
I'm yawning so much. It's like Friday night, it's cold, I feel like I want to go to sleep, but it's like, I almost need like a coffee or like a bit of cold water, just like whack it on me just to wake up a bit.
Does that work for you though? Like the cold water thing?
Nah, probably not.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me.
Actually, it probably does wake me up a little bit for like
really?
5 or 10 minutes.
Oh.
But like, I've heard different things to go to sleep. To go to sleep with warm water versus like having a warm shower versus having a cold shower.
Yeah.
Jury's out.
I mean, you could do some pull-ups. I mean, pull-ups? Push-ups.
Yes,
what
go
David
Gaines.
Goggins say.
Yeah. So, reference of a year. I think so often people have these theories around like reflecting on like the year and like, this is probably a better question. When you reflect on your year, do you do it? Do you write stuff down a lot of like, this is my reflection of the year? Because you're a big journaler. Whereas I like to remember and like talk about it.
Yeah.
But then the worst part about that is there's no time capsule memory of what the year was.
Yeah.
Almost. And so that's where I'd be kind of curious. Maybe we go like, mine, I'll get the answer in the journal or else we'll go on 5 tangents. How do you record this year?
I guess, yeah, I do journal the year on a daily basis, but I wouldn't call that those like journal entries like really good artifacts of like how the year went. It's more like in the day and too narrow.
Yeah.
But I think I've done this better previously, but no, this year because there's just been way too much, but I haven't been writing as often as I should. But the one really good way I try to express this, I think, is through the blogs that I've created in the past.
Cool.
Like, for example, like one of the first blogs I wrote was with a 3-day bicycle race that I was doing at the time. And that was like a capsule of what that experience was like and also who I was at that time.
Yeah.
And it's an artifact that lives on the internet, which is great. But this year I haven't done as much of that, and it's more in here, so I've got to go through a whole backlog.
Yeah. So like,
and work through that.
if that's the case, this is like the idea that I had was like, what if we go through our years like month by month and like each share a couple of points of something that we remember from that month.
Wow.
Because in that way it's like time capsule. It's like a reflection of what is it about that thing that made it important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
So a
remember
lot of
January?
months. Not really. Well,
Okay. What about if we start in like November? Because we're like halfway through December now, like
Yeah.
December 13th.
Yeah.
Is there anything in December at this point in time that you're like, that was a big part of December for you?
December so far? I think one highlight for me in December is that I didn't really, like when Christmas came around last year, one of my regrets at the time was not being conscious or deliberate around gifts.
Okay.
So this year, when December came around, I was real early on it. I was like, December's here, okay, like let's get this shit sorted. So this year, I'm being like really intentional around gifts. So that's a new experience.
Cool. So that's how you sort of remember as an important part of this month for you.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
Yeah.
I feel like not a great start. I haven't really done much December. Like there's nothing that's like, I think I've almost like slacked off to an extent.
Oh.
Like I think the most influential thing was like probably the other week going to the singles event by myself when you were like, no, I can't.
Ooh.
But it's like, okay, still doing the thing anyway. And like speaking to a couple of girls and dating afterwards is probably like okay, get back into the groove of like, this is like an uncomfortable thing. It's been such a long time since I've gone and done the solo like event experience, which is rough. It's so tough. And that's like what makes it memorable is that it became quite easy afterwards compared to what like it almost normally has that. But it's like, it's still that hard part, the uncomfortability of like standing around by yourself and like making small talk and then trying to start a conversation and all the other stuff that goes along with it is that's kind of the memory. Yeah.
Nice.
November.
Damn.
Too long ago. Fuck.
Too long ago, yeah, like, woo. November would be post-marathon couple of weeks after. I think the thing that just floated to the top of my mind is trying to find enjoyment of running again.
Yeah.
Because I guess leading up to the marathon and even like slightly after the marathon it was all like, okay, I've done this huge thing. I kind of like have to like take some time to like break away from it and then kind of reconnect. So November was when I started enjoying running again. It's wild, right? Wild. And then I started reconnecting with the run clubs as well. So socially as well as physically, all of that came back into the routine.
Yeah, getting back into that consistent rhythm, basically.
Yeah. And I think it's also interesting of having the time away because it kind of forces you to kind of reconcile whether the thing is still important to you or not. Whereas if you keep repeating the habit for some reason you have in the past, it might not be as relevant to you anymore.
Yeah.
So it was good to kind of have a break and then kind of get back into it, like really excited. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because I think for me, like, November was Chris Williamson. We did a whole podcast on that.
Man, that was this year?
It's been that long. That, as well as like going to Vietnam and traveling in a foreign country for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
And being in that uncomfortable feeling, seeing somewhere new, like being exposed, making the most of it, like going on bike rides, food, meeting new people, like having an overseas holiday with a mate, Koi. It was like a massive taster of what potentially travel could look like in the future.
Wow.
Of like, how do I want to do it? What's going on?
Oh.
And so like November's like the post-mara, see the world, do the thing you've been putting off for a while.
Right. So travel leading up to the Vietnam trip, like travel has meant different?
It was on the back burner. It was always like a thing that I wanted to do for like 7 years.
Right.
So I went to Europe, did the whole classic Australian Kentucky thing, but it was always like, yeah, I'll get there. Or like, I want to make more money, then I can get there. And there was always like this excuse of like, probably unconsciously in my head of like, I'm not going to travel overseas until I become like one of those working entrepreneurial nomads that can like work from Bali or work from Spain or work from whenever. As opposed to being like, I want to actually just make sure I have money aside to go on holidays.
Right.
And that's it. And that's like acceptable. Which is like the normal thing, but like I had it in my head.
Right. Wow.
And so that probably came from the fact of like giving up on the idea of coaching and not personal development, but like giving up on coaching for a little bit and just like taking a break from that, having to be that person in my own mind.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably what November meant for me.
Wow. Big month.
Yeah. I find it interesting that like just early doors, that like your references of the months is like a change in thought.
Oh.
Of like, I'm just getting back into running, or like it's the initial one was like, I'm just more intentional with my gift giving.
Oh yeah.
Whereas mine is like very event based.
What has happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
wow.
That's quite interesting.
That is interesting.
October? Do anything special in October?
Loaded question. I mean, that's an old story now, right? Like,
the guys don't even know.
The whole month.
We did this whole podcast. We did this whole podcast and it didn't even record. Do you remember?
Actually,
long year.
Was that October? Oh my god. I kind of I lose track of time really easily. Shit. I either forget or like, I don't or like banish it from my memory. Damn. When did we start the podcast?
It was November.
November? What?
Yeah, because we started before.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, no. Did we start it before Melbourne? No, we started before the marathon.
I think that's right. Yeah, the first one.
Yeah.
I think.
And then we did one after the marathon, and then we've done another one. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I'll choose that as my highlight.
Okay.
Yeah.
This guy.
When was it? October, November? Who knows? So I'm terrible with dates, by the way. So when was I born? Yeah.
So the highlight of October was starting the podcast.
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Wasn't doing Melbourne Marathon in the PB.
I mean, that's kind of that's like, you know, like that has its own situation.
It's a bit of a situation
You gotta
shit.
keep it interesting, right? Like there's people watching. Like they don't want to hear me talk about running anymore. Like, god damn.
We've barely talked about running. True fans.
Like, oh, this guy talking about running again and shit.
Yeah, October, Melbourne Marathon,
Yeah.
PB, and like starting the podcast. Like I kind of forgot about like starting the podcast. I thought it was like after the marathon.
Yeah, it does feel like that.
Because like we've dragged it on a little bit. Like it hasn't been every week. It's like
Yeah.
every couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks to 4 to vibes.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's been a case of okay, going actually we're starting a podcast
Yeah.
and like doing it
Yeah.
along with like running a marathon,
Mm.
training for a marathon, being in the presence of a marathon is like I don't know if like for the average person that feels like a big year or a big month to start a podcast and run a marathon, but that's just like October. but like,
Is that normal these days? Like, do people just do that? Like, for me, that's huge.
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like it's big.
Yeah.
I think like for me the reason why the marathon feels so big, even though I've done multiple marathons and 100Ks and
Yeah.
was it's like going for speed. It was like a need for speed. It was like trying to embrace a level of youth despite what my hairline suggests. Just absorbing some youth back in. And like trying to for speed and trying stuff. Like
Yeah.
having a very different vibe to what it's been in the past and knowing that I'm capable of something a lot more.
Yeah. Oh, I'm kind of curious to kind of like double click. So they say these days. Who's double clicking? Why are we double clicking in like real life? Anyways, let's double click on the need for speed, right?
Yeah.
The thought that occurred to my mind was like, it's kind of scary when you put yourself on the line. You know, when you set a goal, like a very hyper-specific goal for yourself, like running a time. We should have gotten to the marathon running because now we're going into a rabbit hole. But anyways.
You're like,
You know, when you
"Fuck it
set a
up."
hyper-specific target, like running a specific time on a race, it's kind of like, it's black and white, right? It's either you meet it or you don't. And to me, that can be kind of intimidating. But I think there's a lot of benefit to having that clarity.
I think it's intimidating, but it's also, I've come to the realization of like you're only going to get to what you achieve. Like,
yeah,
like
yeah.
a lot of people want the time without checking to see what the reality of where their body's at, as well as like where they're mentally at, what's going on. And so it's like the time is nice. And it's also the realization of in so many years' time, the idea of being sub 3, sub 330, sub 320, sub 3, sub 4, sub 5 almost doesn't matter. Like when you compare yourself with like how many other people in the nursing home, probably gonna be fuckloads at the moment. I've been like, yeah, I've done a marathon, I've done my ultras, yeah, I did my sub 330, yeah. I bet you I'll race you down the corridor with my walking frame and just... And so it's like, you realise the time doesn't matter. Like, it does. Like, it kind of eats you up a little bit, but it's not as big of a regret as the training and the process and who you've kind of become on the way. And like, it's probably like the better question is not what your time was, but do you feel like you drained every drop?
Yes.
And was that the intention of the race?
Yeah. That sounds like a goal that's at the right level then.
Yeah.
Like it can't be too far away and it can't be too low, but it's important to set it and then set it at the right level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like as much as SMART goals are fucking bullshit and stuff, like
It's in the
roughly
name.
speaking, like it's not bad. It's not a bad reference. October, September.
September.
What was September like?
Not much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marathon training? What was September? I don't even know.
September.
Wow, this is like quite weird that you're like, it was a full year, it was a massive year, and you're like, September, fuck. Bit boring.
Well, yeah, I guess it comes down to like the question of like, is this really a story that is worth telling? Maybe
Try.
that's part of it, you know.
Like you got to tell the story. What's the
so,
story?
Well, I woke up and had wheat bix for breakfast. Like, no one wants to hear that.
But like,
That
surely
was
have
September.
a story. Oh,
So we can universally agree that no one cares about what I had for breakfast. Okay, great. We can move on. So, that was September. I was
for the
training.
breakfast podcast coming soon.
September. Yeah, there's a bit of a gap there
Yeah,
in my mind.
I think lack of red blood cells from
yeah.
marathon training.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing I can remember from September.
Yeah.
Like it was potentially probably like towards the end getting injured before the mara.
Yeah.
Everything comes back to the mara. But I don't know. There wasn't anything like. It was still in the phase of like us still going to Thursdays.
Yeah.
I feel like
true.
we started earlier than that
Yeah.
a couple of months before, but like we were
That
still.
was this year.
Yeah, that was this year.
Damn.
So yeah, like experimenting with that, like trying something different.
Yep.
And like balancing that with life and work. Yeah, maybe we can skip September. AFL Grand Final was there, but that really wasn't much.
Oh, yeah.
It's like usually September.
Yeah.
What's September? Backwards, 8th August. How'd you go with August?
Ooh. August was a rough
August?
month. Yeah. Rough month for me.
What made it rough? Dogs or?
Yes, the dogs. The dogs who stole my car. That kind of sucked.
That worked really well. That
was
it
August.
wasn't like
God.
yeah, right.
Yeah. I can laugh about it now, but like at the time I was like, ooh, terrible. Yeah.
So like you're still like like this is like what I love about unpacking it. Like it's quite cool. Is like the irony of like our perception. Is you're like great year, everything always went up. Bad year, defined by tragedy. You're like worst month of my life.
Yeah.
Would you
pick and
define that
choose
as a
it.
tragedy? Be honest. Tell us how you really feel.
I wouldn't describe it as a tragedy. I think things could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was bad. And I had a lot of like anger.
It wasn't Romeo and Juliet tragedy. It was
no,
bad.
no.
So like, that's what you remember August as.
Yeah.
The dogs.
Yes, the dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Like in that month, I was having a conversation with another friend, and she was like, "So, what was like?" I think the question was kind of like, what was the worst thing that has happened to you? So, like in this month, like on that month,
Yeah.
and I was like, you know what? I'm kind of sick right now, and that's what I said.
Yeah.
When all of that car stuff had happened before that conversation. So in that moment, I realized that my value towards health is way more important than the things I could lose
Yeah.
materially.
Yeah.
So when I think of tragedy, I think of health. So I wouldn't describe losing a car as that tragic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's painful, but
Not tragic.
not tragic.
Yeah. Cool.
Yep.
'Cause yeah, it's like rough to have something like that stolen or like broken or to that extent.
Yeah. It
yeah.
sucks.
It does. It also then makes me think of like how I've been thinking about the first few months, because it was like November. Yeah. November was like Vietnam, but it was also like my dad was in hospital for like a long time, and like it's almost like my mind was like moving past the tragedy, or like it wasn't a tragedy, but like just a shit couple of weeks, and going, okay, it's not really a highlight of the year, but it's like an important, impactful referential of, like you said, like health.
Yeah.
How important health is for you. And so coming back to August, it's I don't feel like there was much. Like I feel like it was you know what I'm gonna say.
The mysteries of life right now.
It was like starting marathon training. because like I'd had a
man.
month off.
I think we found like the topic of this podcast.
We skipped the
God.
podcast. It didn't record. So so yeah,
man.
it was rough month.
It's full circle coming back to the beginning.
Yeah, but like
Great.
it wasn't. I can't remember anything specifically in August of like
Yeah,
this was like August,
yeah.
and like to that extent like July. Like it would be interesting to go back and like look through my calendar and stuff now to see
Yeah.
like there's probably stuff that I missed and be like that was an August thing or that was a July thing.
Yeah.
It's also like most of that year is like refined by running events and like I don't know, starting work, doing work jobs and like
starting work.
because that was like March, so we're getting a bit
Ah.
extreme.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Much in July?
Not really. Yeah, it's similar to September. It's kind of a filler month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to say that a filler makes it sound bad, but
Didn't
it's
you do
like
run Melbourne?
July.
Half marathon PB.
Oh man.
It's not Maris.
There's a specific theme I'm trying to avoid to keep things
Okay.
interesting.
So then what was the thought that you were having around July?
Yeah, I was so the description I just gave it was like it's a filler month, but it's not. It makes it sound bad, like as if like I just threw the month away, but I don't think that's the case. But it's more like things kind of continued as usual.
I feel like it was a build month. Like
Yeah.
in the sense of like the things coming before it were building up to it on the path.
Yeah, I think so.
So then like
Yeah.
June, much in June.
June. Nothing that really comes to mind, I think. I'd have to go through my calendar, to be honest.
Bad memory. Terrible memory. Because like,
check the blogs. What happened? Internet chat. Tell me.
because like June for me was like 30th. So like cracking into Big 3-0 and like
Yeah.
first birthday party that I've had for years. And like inviting people around and going through the internal drama of who do you invite, who do you leave out, knowing that like you're going to leave people out that you probably would have liked to come, but also like inviting people that you might not have still stay in contact with at that point in time. And it was like a big month to go out, put yourself out there, because I don't normally like having people around to my place, even though it was at like
Wow.
my parents' place, but like it's like even the question of like, have you ever been to my place? No. But like I haven't been to yours, so it's like we're even. But at the same time, I think we're the same sort of people that were like, let's go meet at a restaurant or a cafe. It's sort of like, just come to my place and hang. And so I'm not like someone that just like invites people over.
Right.
Maybe that's like, I think really from like a thing in the childhood thing of like never really inviting people over just because it's too hard basket. And so that's a pattern. Maybe that's something for December is just invite some people around to my house. It's just like an open house. This is my house.
Doors open.
Make the most of December. So yeah, June was like big.
Huh. Wow.
Like it felt like a big achievement. Like it wasn't even an achievement, like it felt like a big experience.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
a lot of internal reflection of like, I think at the time I was like, do I even matter? Was probably the thing.
Huh.
And having like 30, 40 people there was like, oh fuck, people like do think I matter because they've taken time out of their day and their week to like stop in. Was like really quite cool.
Wow. So, in your previous birthdays, then things were different? Like,
I just barely didn't do anything.
oh.
Like occasionally get a few birthday messages, but that's about it.
Oh, wow.
Like go for dinner with the parents, but like it's just the same Chinese place that we normally go to. But it's never been anything that's like big or important.
Huh.
Or like you probably don't even feel worthy of celebrating it. Or maybe like haven't always had the friends around to celebrate that with. It's probably the case.
Yeah.
What about you? Because like we caught up for dinner for your birthday.
Yeah.
Do you do a birthday thing?
haven't really in recent years, to be honest. This year was kind of like, even hosting that small dinner was kind of like of a conscious decision that I had to go through. Because otherwise I'm kind of like blasé about like, birthday's coming up, don't really feel like doing anything, whatever. But I think my attitude to it is kind of shifting a little bit as I get older, because I realize that, birthdays only happen once a year and I've got a limited amount of time left, so never forget. So anyways, I'm trying to reconfigure my attitude to it. But yeah, definitely over the past like 5 years, I've been kind of like,
Yeah.
I'll go for a small dinner or something, and like never really actively participating that much.
Yeah.
But I do like hosting, so that's
You
one
do
thing.
like hosting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Since I was a kid. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Hosts with the most.
yes.
Oh, someone's going to be more
Oh,
sick of the
man.
puns than I think they are of
Yeah.
the running tour.
Just click out of this right now. Oh, man.
So then May.
May. What happened in May? Oh my God. This is. That was this year?
No, we skipped May this year. Nothing happened in May.
Shit, what happened in May?
I feel like you're struggling at this point.
Struggling.
Because like for me,
Struggling.
May was like UTA 100K.
Oh,
So-
damn.
That wasn't a
Wow.
filler month.
That was May? Oh
That
my
was May.
God.
And so it was like,
Woo.
so June was like a bit of recovery from like UTA, but like first 100K in 3 years
Damn.
in the Blue Mountains, driving up in my work ute the day before, doing the race, driving on the way home, almost falling asleep, parking, like sleeping for 2 or 3 hours
Yeah.
on the way home. And just like the 100K itself was just huge in the sense of the acceptance I felt at the end, the pain that the first half was, having a few mates up there to like carry me through each of the aid stations and like purely there for moral support was just a huge importance thing for me of recognizing like how important connection is, or like pure consistent connection. I think that's the thing that I'm finding with like the 100 runs, because fuck me, I got through a few of those this year.
What number are you up to now?
We're at like 94, 95.
Wow.
Like we're almost at the
Damn.
triple digits. It's so...
And you started that this year?
last year.
Last year, yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot.
Yeah.
There was like a few last year, but like a bulk has
Yeah.
been this year.
Wow.
Like probably at least 60 to 70.
Damn. That's more
I
than
reckon.
one a week.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh,
right?
fuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Oh,
Yeah,
shit.
yeah. That's
a
like,
lot.
wow, when you put it that way, of like
Yeah.
having more than one conversation with one person a week.
God, no, I don't want to do that. Anyway,
Fuck people. Just don't want it.
just kidding.
So, please listen. But it's like, I think it's one of the reflections I've had is like, you're like, why am I doing a podcast with this guy? He doesn't even like people. Is like the idea of,
But yes, once a week. Damn, that's a lot.
yeah.
That's a lot.
So it's been less than 2 years, and it's probably
Wow.
been 100, so it's like more than one a week.
Damn.
And that's like sometimes like 3 a week.
Yeah.
And like some weeks there's none. So it's like some weeks there's probably like 3 or 4, or like, yeah.
Maybe tell me about like how did you find the enthusiasm to start something like that? Like what was that? What is that? Yeah.
I think like the starting was just
Yeah.
trying to be probably famous and get attention, if I'm honest.
Okay.
That was like the start,
Okay.
as well as like a way to give back, or like to do it in a genuine way. To not like, have been posting a lot from like a coaching perspective, have been like generically putting out posts because that's what they said you should do.
Right.
To be like, create something around running that isn't, I just did 100K. I mean, I still did that, but, but it's
Why
like,
not both?
you know, like it's to take a different tact, like to get to know people, and also like it's like it wasn't just one reason, but multiple reasons, in the sense of feeling like really uncomfortable talking to new people, and it forced me to like not just like as soon as I met you to keep meeting more people.
Right.
So like not keep trying to meet people until I found some people, but like just keep going.
Yeah.
And like go too far in like the amount of people to meet. And that was probably like the collection of like just something interesting to do. I'd heard about like the 100 runs, 100 lunches before, so it was like I like stole like an artist in the sense of like just copy the idea and just make it your own.
Oh, right. I thought like you were trying to make the connection between 100 miles, 100 conversations. No,
it's just an arbitrary number.
Oh, okay.
I probably could have done 101 runs, but then
Not
like
160.
no,
Not 42.
no, probably should have just started with 50.
Yeah.
But like we're here now. Like it feels like a batting thing of like you're at 95. Am I going to get out? Am I going to stop?
Wow. That's amazing.
And so it's like the ability to get to know someone and like intentionally have to ask questions.
Yeah.
And so my perspective on meeting people and how one connect and interact has changed. And probably as a result, without realizing, I felt more confident the more I've done it. Like the doubt and the anxiety of meeting someone new hasn't gone away. It's like reduced, but naturally it's quicker to get into the confidence and just having a conversation a little bit more. And like at the end, it sort of got to the point of like not trying to force a conversation to be like, as soon as I get the 100 runs done, then that's it. No one else is in. There isn't going to be 101 runs. There isn't like, it's like this closed loop.
Right.
And like the realization is like, I don't like writing, or like, I don't like writing as much as what I do of speaking.
Speaking, yes. Yeah. That's where we're like, we have different mechanisms, but we're pointed towards the same direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like knowing that that's your thing.
Yeah.
It's probably like part of the process.
Follow what works.
Yeah. Does it work? Fucked if I don't.
Well, you do know if it works, I think,
Yeah.
based on vibes, let's say, but you don't know how it works.
Yeah. So like May was big, from like the running 100K and like going through, like it's life changing to go. I think it was like that was like the most confidence fulfilling run I've ever had.
Wow.
It is probably like a better way to describe it now of when I'd done the 100 runs, the 100 miles before, 100Ks before, I still didn't feel confident.
Right.
At the end of it. Was still craving approval.
Wow.
And creating proof.
Even after doing a feat like that? Damn.
Yeah. Whereas now it's like, yeah, I'm okay. I don't have to prove as much. I'll just tell it 3 times on a podcast and that's it.
Are you sure it's 3? I don't know.
That's marathons, they don't count.
Woo! Man.
So April.
What happened? What happened in April?
Easter? The bunny? I don't know.
April.
Fill a month? I was about the same.
Yeah.
It was like between that and Cozzy, like prepping for UTA, trying not to die in the process. Yeah.
I was going to say it's like April is like 6 months off October.
Yeah.
But
marathon season.
Nah.
6
Training
months
started
off.
last year, so I can't talk about that.
6 months off October, yeah. And
No, like, there's nothing to talk about because training started even earlier. Anyways, training started when the last marathon ended.
March.
March. I remember going. Oh man, it goes back to running.
Just embrace it, mate.
Oh,
You're a
God.
runner. You literally said at the start of this podcast, I think I spend most of my time running. It's like almost my
God.
personality.
It's totally not my
And you're like-
personality. I don't know what you mean. It's just what I do. I remember there was a run that we went to together with the club called RTB. It was a little bit out of the city, and one of the questions you had to ask was like, how's your holiday? Because I had just gotten back from Korea.
When was that? Was that in March?
I think roughly it was in March because the trip was in February.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was kind of like reflecting, and you're like, oh, how's your trip? And then yeah, that trip it was a family trip that I went with my sister, my mom, and auntie. So yeah, it was just an interesting like dynamic of like traveling with people who you, in my head, I assumed I knew, but I think that one of the magical things about traveling is that you kind of learn more about the people who you assume you know, and you learn more about what you assume of yourself as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so, did that have a bigger impact this time around for you
Yeah.
than like past trips with family?
Yeah, different people, and different location as well, I guess. We're all in a. Usually, I would see my auntie, for example, only in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Like that's where I would see her like once a year. But in this time, yeah, we were all in a foreign country.
So you saw her in the wild, basically.
I don't know. Seoul, Korea, the wild. I don't even.
That's like at a home. You're like, my auntie was in the wild. She
Yeah, I
was a
guess
different
so.
version of us.
Yes, reflections of March, seeing auntie in the wild. What does that even mean? In too deep. Oh man.
So like March was like starting a new job at the end of the month,
Yeah.
which was like huge.
Wow.
And like getting the process of like interviews and doing that was like quite big. And that was probably like also starting like mentoring around getting a mentor. It was like him and his like academy is basically like a bit more spiritual, a bit more emotional stuff. Because I remember that because I was going for a job interview and like basically had a call just before, and it was like a massive pep talk of like going to the interview, this is how you need to act,
Right.
this is how you need to be, this is how you need to show up as, and so that was like massive in getting the job and like working on that thing,
Right.
as well as at the same time going up to Cozzy with Josh and Izzy and doing the 59k up there, going up to the top of Cozzy, which is the highest mountain in Australia, which is not really much. It's just a long road.
Yeah,
Place was really nice,
Yeah.
but massive month. Like it's almost like a DJ set of like you're like there is these analogies coming from. Of like, it's like you got like the highs. You're like you can't just like gradually like have a massive like uptick.
Okay.
But like you gotta have like the downs. You know how it's like the massive and then it drops and you're like,
Right,
oh, this is a
right.
bit sad.
Elevation
Like,
loss.
yeah.
Elevation gain. Yes.
Yeah. And so
I
like
get ya,
the
yeah.
filler months are just like the lows of the peaks. You know?
Hey, but downhill is good.
Yeah. And you're just cruising down or just on the flats. Just a bit of road running. It's fine. You can live with road running, no power hiking. So
I
yeah,
haven't graduated to that class. I'm sorry.
yeah. One day we'll bring you
One day,
along.
yes.
So yeah, that was March, and so that felt like
Damn.
a big month.
Smart.
Because it was like starting to get back at work. That was like the 4th month of not being employed.
Oh.
Things started to shift.
Yeah.
A lot of things happened that month.
Yeah. How did you feel going back into work? Like,
I think I felt quite good because I'd had a fair bit of time off to relax.
yeah.
Or like just not do anything.
Yeah.
And it was like a good environment to come into.
Mm.
It was sort of the thing that I was looking for at that point in time
Yeah.
as a work environment. Like, do I still enjoy work? I don't know if I'll ever completely love work, but it feels a lot more fulfilling than anything that I've experienced in the past. It's probably the metric. And I feel like that's enough to be content.
Yeah.
Like it's allowed me to do the rest of the year in the sense of to be able to pay for all these runs and events and training and physios and massages and going to Vietnam. So it feels like a good trade-off.
Yeah, I think one thing I've learned from talking to Herman Guild, who is another friend that you've met, is that he's made a distinction, or helped me understand better, that there's a distinction between work and a job.
Yeah.
And I think as you spoke about that, it reminds me of what a job might look like or feel like or result in, rather than what work is. Yeah.
How do you separate the two?
I think job to me sound like, I think work can be like more, it seems more holistic, of like, you're put on this earth, what is your work that you're gonna dedicate yourself to? Maybe that's a big question. And then job can be like, okay, I'm working this job so that I can earn money. Yeah. And maybe they're both interconnected.
But they can be different.
But they can be different, yeah.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
It's like, I think I was trying to fight for the financial freedom and to be that, what is it, backpacker entrepreneur that's like living on a beach doing work.
Ooh, yeah.
As opposed to like, sometimes like just doubling down on where your strengths are.
Yeah.
And your ability to deliver value. And like, having gone out to the wilderness also makes me go, okay, maybe that's not me or not me at the moment. And to embrace that. And that maybe there's still more skills I need to learn in that space to create something in the future.
Yeah, I remember like in the lead up to that interview period where you were like scouting for companies and whatnot, like you were very clear in terms of what value you could bring, like in terms of the technical skills you had and your background and your expertise. I was quite impressed actually.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Interesting you remember that.
Yeah.
Feb, 2 more months. Feb was like your travel.
Yes, I was traveling. Oh, thankfully I have something to talk about. Yes, I was traveling.
Adding some value to the pod, doing some work.
Who's this guy aside from that whole thing? Traveling in South Korea. Second time back in that city. Very interesting place. I find it, I don't know, I think the first time around I was like more of a tourist and I didn't see the place for what it was, but this time around I'm like, I could kind of contrast it to like my other experiences traveling to other places. And I found that Seoul was like kind of an unwelcoming city, even though it's like really beautiful. Lots of tradition, cafes look amazing, and things tended to be very perfect on the outside, but the feel of it, like when you're walking the streets or standing in a train getting somewhere, people tended to be quite rude, or they just don't see you at all. And maybe that's just how big cities are, I don't know. But
They do have a communist dictator just on the other side of the...
Yeah, that's why everyone's so tense. It's the nuclear missiles. But for real, like, I remember standing in a train and, you know, usually, like, if you have a backpack, you would, like, carry it so you don't bump into people. But, like, I was carrying my backpack in my hand and people were still bumping into me anyway. Like, I was
like
just standing there.
zero care.
Like, hello? What? Sorry.
Everyone was just like a robot in the Matrix.
Kind of. Maybe I can understand if they're like, you know, hyper-focused and they want to get to where they want to go. But it was kind of like rough. Like, why?
There's something you were saying before, it was like, I saw it differently. Like, before I was a tourist, now I was like, I forget what the wording was.
Yeah.
Like you felt like you saw the real soul or like true soul. What was that? Was it like just the fact that everyone was just in the Matrix, or?
Maybe it's, I mean, part of it is like kind of, Seoul is one of the few places that I've revisited for a second time.
Yeah.
Aside from Malaysia, where I come from. So yeah, it's just interesting having like the first and second experience to contrast against, and then also then to reflect on like how do other cities behave.
Like a growth through that time.
Yeah, growth, or maybe it's just my eyes that have grown.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was February. How was your February? Man. can't get cornier than this.
No, that was. This reminds me of this podcasting guy I was listening to. He's just like
Oh
a
my
little bit
God.
like just odd. He just like just open my eyes. So good.
No worries.
I was like physically, literally, like just see the world differently. I was like, okay, we got there. I had to run through the options. Feb, it was probably like the last month of like 100k weeks.
Oh, man. Strava should sponsor this guy. Like, my God.
So yeah,
Oh,
big
shit.
training weeks. I think we ran Lerderderg. We did 50k. I got nothing else. It wasn't working, mate.
That's cool. It's cool.
I
I
swear
swear
it's
it's
cool.
Oh, man.
My eyes are open.
Oh,
Um,
God.
so yeah, big month. Feel a month,
Huge
but a big month.
What?
The K's were fucking epic.
Wow.
Which then sort of leads back to like generally the first month, which is like
Oh, yeah.
2 bays, 56.
Wow, you
Just-
did 2 bays?
Yeah,
Damn.
so it's like big month,
Wow.
big start to the year. Like a couple of 100k weeks in there, and just riding it out was just, yeah, quite a big few days. Big month, big way to start the year. And it's just like running a fuckload. And like that first 3 months was just run clubs, many people, new conversations, 100 runs, training like a motherfucker. Like it was like,
Wow.
it's like, what do you do with your time for 4 months? I just fucking ran. I didn't travel, didn't do anything, I just ran between jobs. Goals.
Oh, yeah. Right. So that was the 4 month.
Yeah, like I remember having
season.
this conversation with Alison, one of the girls from the run club,
Right.
and we're at the track, and she's at the end, she's like, "You're doing all these workouts, you're doing 100k weeks, do you actually work?" I was like, "Nah, I don't actually."
Well, we're laughing about it, but like I can easily see that answer flip to yes.
Yeah.
I do work and
Yeah.
do this.
It does.
Oh.
But it's also like at the time of, I think that was my realization through that time of the amount of stress that your body gets under through work is a lot.
Yep.
Like the capacity to do 100k weeks in around work, and my work schedule now is just almost horrendous. The
Right.
amount of time and effort that would take to do that.
Yep.
And so it's
10
like,
hours at least.
yeah, at a minimum.
Yeah.
We're not doing 6-minute Ks the whole time.
Too slow for that shit.
Yeah, January for you.
January.
Last one, I promise.
January. Where was I? Still in Melbourne, probably, I think. No, that's not right.
Still in Melbourne.
It's not right. I was in Perth, I reckon,
For a lot of
at
January.
that time. Yeah, I was in Perth.
Good.
Not enough running.
I think we come full circle. You're like, I'm solely a runner now. I'm trying to avoid talking about running. I just didn't run. It was a shit month.
It was sad. The sun's up too early, 40 degrees. Tough. Or maybe
Sounds
I'm
like
not
running
committed
weather.
enough. Questions to ask myself.
Yeah.
But
What are you going to ask
actually-
yourself this time? Are you committed?
Big questions. But New Year's, I remember New Year's Eve in January, just before, because my sister had the genius idea of running around the river in Perth.
Yeah.
So we went out for like, I don't know, yeah. You know how like people like celebrate, like they have food, they might have drinks on New Year's Eve, you might park up somewhere to watch the fireworks. My sister was like, maybe we should go for a run. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good.
Sounds like your sister.
Anyways,
Like brother, like sister.
where did she get these ideas from? So we went out, and it was like 8 p.m. We went around the typical like river loop around the city. It was amazing, by the way, like maybe 10K. Not bad.
For the vibes.
For the vibes. But what was great was that we just so happened to be in time for the children's fireworks.
Yeah.
So at 8 p.m., like people were like, oh, fireworks, and like it wasn't that grand. But as we were running in and back into the city, the fireworks were going off.
Okay.
So it was amazing.
Do you get any videos or just like vibes?
No, just vibes. No videos.
No
Unfortunately.
proof. Did
No
actually
proof.
happen.
It's on Strava. It's on Strava, but
Went off with a bang.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, like coming back full circle, it's like December.
Yeah.
Close it off. I think like what I'm doing for December is like end up like just casually signing up to like the doubles high rocks on the weekend. So
This
that'll be
weekend?
like, yeah. So that'll be
tomorrow?
like yeah. No,
Oh, yeah.
Sunday.
Oh,
So I'm only
Why
doing
not?
half the. I mean, it was a filler month,
oh, okay.
so
Yep.
that'll be the plan.
Wow.
Yeah.
This Sunday? Nice.
So like now that
Woo.
we've gone through the year, how does that feel? Like as in looking back from the year of like your perception was great year, always up. How does it does it change the way you feel about it? Does it?
It doesn't change the overall summary, but I think as we went through month by month, I realized that maybe my life is pretty boring, but from the outside,
Yeah,
but on the inside, it's really fun.
feels like amazing. Feels
Yeah,
good.
Because when I try to explain like, oh, what's a filler month? I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
wake up early, I go running, like life's great.
Yeah.
But like, when trying to articulate it, it's like, man, from the outside it looks so boring. Like, what the heck?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And-
the overall summary, I think, is still accurate.
yeah. I don't think I realized how many filler months there were, as well as the fact of, I don't think it quite pointed out of like you're actually having a conversation and writing a post about someone more than once a week, on average.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That was like
yeah.
a cool realization of like, fuck, that is a
Man,
lot of
that's a
posts
lot.
and people and
To keep that consistent as well. That's quite the effort. Yeah.
yeah. We'll close up
Yeah.
that there, unless there's anything else you want to add to like 2024. Is there anything else you'd like to do in the next 2 weeks?
The next 2 weeks.
I mean, you can have 2 and a bit weeks.
Anything I'd like to do.
Fill a month.
I'm like, there is one. There is one. So before, oh man, it comes back to the same topic. Anyways, I'll just own it. You know what? I'll just own it.
Acceptance, I like
Like before, like I think in June or July, I was chatting with a friend, and we had this crazy idea of like, you know what, like maybe on a Sunday, instead of going out and running, I don't know, 30 kilometers, why don't we just go out and see where it ends, wherever the end is. So one of the things I have in my mind is that I want to go for a run one day and just keep going until I either drop or give up.
And what do you think that'll be? Like, is it like you just vibes, get
Just
food,
vibes.
just
Just
see where you lead?
Yes.
Solo in Perth.
Yes,
Short River, it's a tiny town.
that's all right. Fight
Yeah,
the
I'll be
Crocs,
interested to see how you go.
Yeah.
Crocs.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's been plaguing my mind. I'm like, hey, go running. I'm like, no, no.
Just got to accept it. Yeah, I think for me, I'm like content with the year. There's nothing else like cool to add high rocks just to the year, just casually. But like, I just feels like a good year.
Man,
You
wow.
know, I think we did a good thing to not even mention Spotify Wrapped until this point in time,
Oh, right.
which is like quite cool. Like some people will be like, imagine if there was a podcast where someone was like, my Spotify Wrapped for the year, mate, instead of running. Like, Strava Wrapped, way better.
Yeah, it depends on which community you hang out with, I think.
Yeah.
That makes it cool.
Yeah.
Wow. 2024. There you go.
2024 as it was. 2024 as it was.
Mm.
Too good. Thanks once again. This
good.
felt like we had so many laughs. Like there was like so many. Like we were off our chops.
Yeah.
And like this is just a year in review. Like it's not like trying to be funny. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna review my year.
Yes. Great times.
Yeah.
This is why we do it. To make memes.
Hope you had a good 2024. To 2025, there'll probably be another pod, maybe. We got you covered.
Maybe? Oh man, this is too fun.
No, like as in like this year.
Oh.
You know, like
I
are we
see.
actually going to get onto the like we can?
Right. We could.
We could get on the
virtual
computer.
podcast. Not as great, but
For the vibes.
yeah, for the vibes. Test out a different medium.
Yeah. Park vibes. Park vibes is where it's at.
Yeah.
I really
that
prefer
could
this to the
work.
office.
That could work. Yeah.
I'm loving this pod set.
Yeah.
Actually, like we planted all these trees to make it like perfect. We asked the sun to just be perfectly aligned. It's
just hold on. Just
goals.
don't set, please.
I know.
Sound
Sick.
good? I'm surprised you could walk. My legs are
Just.
numb.